You know what? Parents can really mess you up. And it isn't that they do it on purpose, of course, but the messages that you get while you're growing up from some adult figure, usually your parents or step parents or caregiver of some sort, even teachers, pastors, any adult figure that's influential over your life, the messages that they give you when you're very small go right into you and they're unfiltered. So you get trained and programmed in ways that may have served you okay when you were a little kid to keep you out of trouble, to keep you safe. But as you grow up and you become an adult and you're trying to continue your journey through the world, whether or not you're on a journeyless path, it can really screw with your mind. So I'll give you an example. I know somebody who's about old enough to be my dad, and he was explaining to me one time about his relationship with his father. When he was growing up, he grew up in a pretty conservative home, and he was basically channeling his energy into getting good grades and being in sports and all that kind of stuff so that when he was ready to, he could go to college, which is what he did. So he went to college. His parents paid for him to get through college, and he met his wife there, and they got married, and everything was hunky-dory, except that his dad wanted him to go to medical school and become a doctor, just like he had. So this guy's father was a doctor, and he wanted his son to follow in that same path. But this guy didn't feel the internal motivation to become a physician. He wanted to go into business. And that's what he did. And he flailed for a long time as a young husband and then father, trying to make it back in the 70s when there was a recession and times were tough and jobs were hard to find. And then his career started. He got into the banking sector, got into insurance, started his own business selling insurance, and then got into real estate. And his motivation through all of this was to eventually earn enough money that he could prove to his father that his income potential was good enough for his dad, good enough to satisfy his dad. Because his dad figured, as a doctor, he's going to be successful, wealthy, and be able to care for his family, and he'll never have financial problems. At least that's what this person thought was the main motivation. So one year, he had a windfall year in his real estate business down in Southern California. And he had his tax return all prepared, and he took a copy of it and he showed it to his father, and he said, "Look, Dad, this is what I made last year in my business." And it dwarfed the income of his dad at his highest point of earnings. And his father just looked at that and looked at him and just nodded. But it wasn't until he was in his 40s, or maybe even his early 50s, I don't remember exactly what time frame it was, but he was well into adulthood and his kids were grown up, when he was able to finally prove to his dad that he was financially successful. that he was good enough. So, I know he's not the only one who has this yearning to make himself feel good enough for his mom or dad. Usually it's for dad. It seems that a lot of us want to show that we're good enough for dad, and we want to win the affection of mom. Especially if we've had some kind of separation from our mom or dad, or both. Even though they aren't there, even though they may have passed away, that doesn't matter, because it isn't the physical person and their physical influence on us now that causes us to have this desire to please them, to prove to them that we're good enough. It's this internal message. It's something that was started when we were very young. This message that you need to perform to be good enough. You need to do X in order to get Y. So it's that conditional love that we feel from the adults in our life that is very unhealthy, that causes us to feel like we haven't quite made it. We haven't quite reached the summit, the plateau. We feel like we've gotten the love for a little bit or for a while, and we've satisfied them maybe just for this time, but is it good enough? Can I rest now? Am I at peace? Am I at a place now where I can say, yes, I'm finally good enough? The thing is that nothing that we do externally is ever going to make us feel good enough. Even if we finally prove to mom or dad through some external measure that we've made it, it's going to be a short-lived pleasure. It's like a pride thing. Okay, now I've made it. Now what? And then think about all that wasted time, all the time that I spent trying to get this other person to think I was good enough, and was it really worth it? And does that really satisfy that internal voice, that urge inside that says, hey, just a little bit more, you still need to do a little, you're not quite there yet. It's like the message got started by the influences of adults, but then it gets internalized, and it's a recording that keeps playing back and back and back over and over and over on repeat inside our heads and our hearts. It's not just a message like in your memory. It's not just something that you repeat as a voice in your head, but it's an urging, it's an anxiousness that you feel inside you, maybe in your chest, that drives you to do things, to possibly even become somebody that will finally be good enough. So let go of that attachment. Let go of that attachment to trying to please mom and dad, because it doesn't matter if you please them. It's not going to squelch. It's not going to satisfy that urge that you have inside. But you can satisfy that urge by going into it and really listening to that urge and asking yourself, what is it that causes me to feel like I haven't made it? And the first instinct might be, well, it's because I was told this and somebody said this to me, and and my mom and dad told me this and that, and that's why I feel that. But go in even further, go beyond that. What's the feeling? Where does that feeling lead you? And can you let it go? Can you just go at the feeling? Instead of thinking about the message as you heard it from your parents, instead of thinking about all of the associated images of what it was that caused you possibly to feel that way, go into the feeling itself, the sensation in the body, and ask yourself, can I let this feeling go? Can I let this feeling of constantly needing to go after something in order to prove my worthiness, that I'm good enough? And can I let go of this attachment to mom and dad that causes me to feel this way? And like I said, it doesn't matter if mom and dad are still around or not. There can be people who have lost their mom and dad, but the message is still playing in their heads and in their hearts that they haven't quite made it. But it's still that same message that came from the adult figures in their lives, even though they're no longer there. They being the people are no longer there. The people are no longer influencing them physically, yet they still have the message. Can you let go of this message? Can you let go of this feeling, the sensation in your body that's causing you to chase, to go after something as if getting it will make you good enough? Can you just let this go? And can you let it go a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more? And continue to ask yourself that until you can come to peace with it. Just letting it go. That's all I have for today. Bye-bye.